I'm proud of ourselves today.
We did a good job.
We did a fantastic.
If you decide that you would like herpes all over your face to be the name of the title.
That's the bar.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Wednesday Night Gentlemen Multimedia Empire official podcast. You are listening to episode number 33. On this show, we like to talk about comic books, movies, TV shows, video games, political discourse, space, robots, more space, spaceships. I am your host, Tactic Angel. I am giving you a warning, listener, that this is probably going to be a sloppy episode. Because with me is Midget Radio, my murderous socialist friend. Midget Radio, I understand that you're drinking.
Hi. Yeah, I am. As usual. I mean, that's basically every episode, I think, for the both of us. So, yes, I am drinking.
I thought you were going to say, I am awake, or something like that.
Well, I'm that too. But yeah.
And today's a special day because we have coordinated beverages.
This is pretty exciting. So I've got the Akashi whiskey, a Japanese whiskey, a product of Japan. I'm pretty excited to try this. Never had this before.
Uh-huh. Is this the moment of truth?
I don't know. Do you want to? I understand you have the same thing. I'm ready to sample if you are.
I have already drank Akashi.
Oh, okay. Was a little less exciting for me then. So I'm gonna drink it now.
All right.
It's not bad.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Could
it's
you
not
describe
very,
it for us?
I don't know. It's not that strong. It doesn't taste that strong anyway. I am drinking this with 3 ice cubes instead of a customary 2.
Okay. I assume that's because you have a lot of it, and that's because you expect that this will be a long episode.
It is a brand new bottle, so
okay,
a long way to go.
So, could you describe it in terms of things that you may have drank before?
So I've always felt that the 12-year Glenlivet is like one of the easiest Scotch whiskeys to drink. So far this is up there with just there's not that I don't get much of an aftertaste. I don't feel like what can sometimes be that typical burning sensation going down the chest as you drink it. It seems a little thick to me. I don't know if that makes any sense.
The viscosity.
Yeah, the viscosity. It's a little bit thick, but it's definitely not bad. I mean, I'm liking it right now. It is, I would say, an entirely inoffensive whiskey.
Well, like most Japanese whiskeys, they manage to make something that has, and this doesn't have as much, but a little hint of Scotch to it, and also every whiskey I've had that's Japanese is uniformly smooth.
Interesting.
But this is the first time for you.
Yeah.
For the Akashi.
This is good. It's a little sweet too. It's a little sweet. I'm detecting. But not not overpowering.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because you're an idiot and you have drank this before.
Oh, have I?
You have.
I probably don't remember.
I brought over a bottle of this to Blue Sky Giant's place, and
really?
You definitely drank some of it. Yep. I have.
What state of mind was I in after I? There was not a lot of like disciplined drinking over at Blue Sky Giant's place.
There's
so
not
a lot of
much,
that is kind of lost.
There's not much discipline to Blue Sky Giant or Midget Radio at all. So we're not going to talk about whiskey the whole time. I just wanted to have some fun with that because I very specifically text messaged both of you back in the day with a beautiful up angle shot of this bottle. And it's a very specific bottle. It looks kind of like an old old glass IV case.
Yeah. Yeah.
But apparently you can forget just about anything.
Well, I probably drank a lot of it. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
It's good though. I like my Japanese whiskeys. I think I probably like Suntory Toki a little bit more than Akashi, but Akashi is very good.
Have you heard of Coffee? Another Japanese whiskey?
I don't think so.
That might be next on the list.
All right, well I can look for it. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. So anyway, things that we're going to talk about other than that we are drinking. We're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. Here we go. Star Trek Discovery, known more commonly as STD, is a TV show from CBS. After 12 years off the air, hopes are high that STD will sell all sorts of subscriptions to CBS All Access. Midget Radio, what do you think of Star Trek Discovery?
I love it. It's the best show ever. End of episode.
Well, I agree. Roll the credits.
I don't know where.
How about we start?
Okay.
Over the last week, I have watched every first episode of every Star Trek series that there is.
Okay. Excellent. I have watched the only one I did more or less the same thing, though I did not have time to do Voyager.
Yeah. Well, I
remember
Caretaker.
Yeah, I remember the Caretaker. Fucking no competence. Yeah.
So what would you say is your favorite first episode of Star Trek?
That is kind of hard. It's probably going to come off a little crazy. I think that I kind of have maybe the most love a little bit for Encounter at Farpoint, though I'm well aware of its weaknesses. I would say though that while I have kind of that's just sort of a personal favorite, I actually think that the first episode of Enterprise is probably the most solidly entertaining first episode of a Star Trek series.
Broken Bow, which is the first episode of Enterprise, ranks pretty highly on my list.
Okay.
Cool. After watching Encounter at Farpoint Station, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But at the same time, there are so many things that happen in it that are memorable. You have the first appearance of Q.
Yeah.
You get a little bit of history from Earth. So you have world building with the post World War III sort of despotic courts that were set up. You get actually a pretty decent introduction to most of the characters, except probably Captain Kirk or Captain Picard, because he seems a little bit like an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
He recovers nicely over the next 7 years, but
yeah.
Broken Bow, I actually I went back, I watched Emissary. I actually don't find Emissary to be, which is the DS9.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, to be offensive. I don't find it to be offensive.
Yeah. Okay.
I do not understand, and based on my finite nature, I probably am capable of understanding what it would be like to be a creature that exists without an understanding of time.
Sure.
Because I mean, it seems to me if you exist at all times in all places exactly as you are, then having a conversation with an entity that is based in a temporal sort of sense is impossible.
Yeah, I would say
don't know.
it clearly is. And I believe Immanuel Kant would as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think probably one of the ones I like the most, though, and maybe possibly the most, it was actually The Cage, which doesn't actually count.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I like The Cage so much is because I like the menagerie so much.
Yes.
And I love that those two, if you watch The Cage and then later you watch the menagerie, you actually get an interesting both sides of the argument and still a uniform exaltation of will, of your personal agency to make decisions for your life.
That's cool.
I like those very much.
Well, that's cool.
I should say that I don't think that the Man Trap, the actual first episode of Star Trek, the original series, was particularly good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Caretaker is an infuriating episode.
Yeah.
Which sets up the necessity for 7 years of that.
Yeah.
That fucking show.
Yeah.
If you were to rank A Vulcan Hello and the Battle at the Binary Stars, which I think we have to review kind of together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have no intention of separating these two.
Then how do you think that would fare by way of comparison?
I don't know. I have such a hard time, I guess, answering that question because there's so much baggage to consider, and not just like the production and some of the surrounding, circumstances regarding the development of Discovery and the decisions behind how and when to air it, but just as like, I mean, having to attempt to consider it in continuity with the rest of Trek is certainly, I think, a monumental amount of baggage just right there. But if I try to consider it like independently of the rest of Star Trek, I mean, I'd say that it's a solid, it's certainly a solid pilot episode, and for sheer entertainment value, I'd probably put it somewhere in the middle of the road. I think the premiere for Enterprise was better. I think the premiere for Classic was better. But I think that the pilots for Discovery is probably a better, more consistently, more intelligently and rationally and entertainingly told story than the premieres for TNG, DS9, and Voyager. So I guess I'm kind of in the middle with this.
So that's a qualified in the middle, because what you just said is as long as you don't think about it as Star Trek, then I think from pure entertainment value, it's not falls somewhere in the middle.
It's not that though. It's not like I don't feel like this isn't Star Trek. It's just that it's competing against. There's so many hurdles that you have to get through. I think before you can really like consider it fairly, because it's frustrating, and the show did this to itself, and I don't understand the decision making behind it. But like if you're coming at this as a Star Trek fan, as someone who's seen every single episode of all the past series, though I have not seen all of the animated series. That's the one that I did not watch all the way through. But if you're coming at it from that perspective, it's hard to see how this like fits. You still have to deal with the fact you've still got this in the back of your mind. Like, how does this really fit with the timeline? This doesn't make sense. The holographic project. Why do the Klingons look like this? Like, there's still all of this activity in the back of your mind that is distracting from what's actually going on in the episode. So from that perspective, because there are these other elements that you have to deal with, unless you're just totally capable of completely turning off your brain and approaching this as a brand new thing, that's what I mean by baggage. And because of that baggage, it's sort of difficult to. It's somewhat difficult, I think, to evaluate this series. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. I know. I kind of get what you're saying. I think it would be strange to say to anyone who's been a long time Trek fan, though, that the new Star Trek is all right, is good, as long as you turn off your brain. Because that's,
I know, yeah,
like fundamentally not what most of the people who are long-term fans are in it for. Yeah. We don't rewatch episodes just to see ships blow up. Yeah. We watch the episodes because we like the character interactions, and we like some of the themes that they put out there, and certainly the heavy-handed moralizing. That's why I'm there.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of heavy-handed moralizing coming up. Based on just the previews. It looks like this is just going to be a long form adventure for Michael Burnham.
Yeah. So that to me is okay. So with respect to my earlier point, I think that like the difficulty that I'm having with the show, or at least those difficulties that I was talking about, could have basically been washed away and taken care of entirely if they had just made a series that was set after, Voyager, set after Nemesis. Because then you don't have any of that kind of crap really to deal with, unless, you still stick with the redesign of the Klingons, and then it still doesn't really make any sense. But to your point, chief among the concerns, and I think where the more legitimate criticism comes in, the problem that I have with the pilot episode of Discovery is that it does feel like the Michael Burnham show, and that's what separates it. Really, I think that's what it separates it substantially from other entries in the franchise. There's got to be a crew. There's got to be more than one person. Star Trek has almost always been an ensemble cast, and I mean, you could say that, I think one of the reasons the Enterprise failed is because it did a terrible job developing any of the characters aside from Archer, who's not a great character in the first place, to Paul. There's a whole lot of issues with the Paul. I actually tripped the best among that crew. And then maybe secondary to that, the original series, you really only had Spock, McCoy, and Kirk, but their chemistry with each other was so freaking powerful that it would carry you through basically any episode. But the rest of the series, they had such a deep bench of characters, and they felt like ensemble productions. And for this to narrow its focus to just this one character, Michael Burnham, just this one protagonist,
there's I get the sense that Doug Jones' character, Saru, I think he's going to be around. It looks like he just,
I think so too, and that's necessary.
I guess. Still, you have Michelle Yeoh, Doug Jones, and Sonequa Martin, and they are the three people I think you're supposed to care about on the Shenzhou.
Yeah.
but like they have awful chemistry with one another.
I think,
And I think part of it's that it's just so poorly written, the banter, the interactions, and frankly the kind of I don't even know, bossy nature. I'm gonna say bossy because it's really triggering. Nature of Michael Burnham's character that's just when you look at Saru and Michael Burnham and you watch particularly the first two episodes, you get the idea that these two people have a pathological hatred for one another.
I mean, I would say that's there to some degree. I mean, I think if you watched like, I don't know, I think if you watched maybe one episode of the original series, sometimes you could get that feeling between McCoy and Spock. And it takes a few episodes to kind of get where they're coming from. I think this being just one episode, here's my perspective on it was there's a relationship between Saru and Michael Burnham that has potential. There's a little bit of a kernel there that may blossom into something. Now, did we see that in the pilot episode? No. Have we ever seen that? Have we ever seen a show develop those kind of relationships in one episode? No. Certainly not a Star Trek pilot, but
you certainly can, because we see people make relationships work in the span of a movie, and this is basically a movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are plenty of examples of where it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But
they don't have they don't have that much interaction with each other anyway. I mean, the focus of these episodes was clearly not to develop anyone other than Michael Burnham, to provide her with this backstory that is going to inform the rest of the series when she actually gets aboard the Discovery. I'm not gonna be overly harsh on it. That's why I choose to kind of land on there's potential here, maybe, but it wasn't. I mean, it certainly wasn't developed in these two episodes.
Do you want to go ahead and quantify all of your thoughts into a number?
Sure.
It's between 1 and 5.
Yeah.
Though I think we call this the old Netflix scale.
That's true. I think I am and I wonder if we have maybe a slightly different understanding of how the star rating works. Basically, if I give something a 3, then I'm basically exactly middle of the road on it. I don't know if you feel the same way, because you give things 2.5 a lot, but I am going to give this 2.5 is where I'm at.
It used to be when you hovered your mouse over it, it would say liked it.
Yeah.
And then it was like loved it.
Okay.
And then like I don't remember what 5 was, because I think there's like 4 things that ever got a 5 out of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise I round down. So you say 2.5, which is the nihilistic middle for me, or
yeah.
If you're saying that you think 3 is the nihilistic minimum, then you are slightly sour on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my 2.5 reflects a disappointment for sure.
I don't even know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do. Along with the Netflix scale was another button that was actually different. Do you remember that button?
Not interested.
It was not interested. I don't feel that this show deserves any stars.
Yeah.
We're just going to put it on straight up, not interested.
Truly nihilistic.
I think in terms of sci-fi original feature called Space Adventure Show, it was even within its own right, poorly written and horrendously acted.
Wow, really?
And,
I would disagree with that. I would disagree with that for sure, but
my primary problem is that Michael Burnham is someone that I should like,
yeah.
but I just hate her.
Yeah.
She is wildly insane. She has managed to leapfrog past any talk of the communicator into just episode 1 full on batshit crazy territory, and we're supposed to like her. Michelle Yeoh's character was a bad example of what a captain should be, and certainly not a very wise Starfleet captain. And Saru should never be given the bridge because he's a coward. And I don't know how you're supposed to deal with that. I didn't hate him as a character, but I had a really hard time understanding how he would have been promoted to where he is as a Starfleet officer.
Okay.
So we're going to go with not interested.
Okay. So
now we're going to put up the
spoilers.
Do you want to argue with me without spoilers, or do you want to argue with me with spoilers?
No, let's just let's blast into spoilers.
Blasting into spoilers.
Yeah. That strikes me as a bit overly harsh. I'm curious about, so I get where you're coming from with Burnham. And obviously, I mean, the biggest thing that sticks out was her decision to Vulcan death grip her
neck pinch.
her her captain in order to essentially commit mutiny and open fire on the Klingons because of something her adopted dad said.
I'm mutinying you to save you.
Yeah. So I agree. I agree. When that struck me as an absurdly melodramatic action to take that came out of absolutely nowhere. And I've seen like defenses of that being that, you know, that her parents were killed by Klingons, whatever. But there's no like
she had all this training by the Vulcans, and none of it mattered.
Exactly. She's still so emotionally traumatized by what happened to her family with the Klingons that she decides to essentially commit mutiny and start a fucking war. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's completely over the top. And because none of that aspect of her character was developed at all in this episode, it just seems completely insane. There's nothing for the audience to really hold on to understand that decision. So you have to make these excuses for her. You have to essentially make these excuses for the writing in order for that to actually make any sense at all, which is a signal. It's a quality or a characteristic of something that is badly written. So I see where you're coming from on that. The rest of it, though, like I didn't have any problem at all, really, with Michelle Yeoh as a captain or anything that she did on the bridge. And I don't really have an issue with Saru either. I mean, I get like that he's essentially a coward, but what's interesting about him and the scene that I liked in particular between him and Burnham was when they first decide to go explore the ship. Burnham's kind of gung-ho, like we're here to discover new things, like we shouldn't run away from shit. Like I like that attitude, and I like Saru's sort of mitigating presence toward that kind of attitude. So I do feel like he serves a function, and he's not like so. I don't feel like it's so played up. It's so played out that like he's such a coward. He's completely unwilling to confront anything. I don't. That seems like an overly harsh interpretation of where he's coming from, because he generally had pretty good reasons for we should fucking bail. I mean, it's a presence, and it's an attitude, and it's an approach that does serve some utility on the bridge.
So I would have a hard time pointing to any other Starfleet captain, Starfleet officer any bridge crew that is so apparently uniformly I don't know, this is dangerous, because I mean, how many Star Trek episodes are there where there isn't the threat of death? I think when the crew of DS9 play the Vulcans, I think that might be
the baseball
the
episode?
only episode. Otherwise, it's like, Q shows up. You've got, Tar Monster that's murdering away team members.
Yeah.
You've got being sucked into a time warp. I mean, how many times? Some field. There's lots of things. Like, if you are that afraid, you should just not be in space.
No, I think that's a little too harsh, because Saru's
and
again, this is just a premiere episode.
They give him the bridge. I mean, anything could happen, right? And it would be like warp.
But again, this is a pilot episode, and all that means is that Saru has potential as a character to investigate how someone like that, a species like that, achieved the position that he has is interesting. And it means to some degree that despite his aversion to risk, that he's somehow overcome that's a character who's clearly going to be conflicted, and that's what has the possibility to make him interesting. So I think to judge him now after just these first two episodes, essentially, that's why it strikes me as a little bit harsh. There's potential there. And I think to just come down solidly on the fact that, oh, well, he's scared of everything, so he shouldn't be on the bridge. I mean, you're just shutting down that character right away, as if he has no room to grow, as if there's no way to explain any of that, as if it's not, an inner conflict that he's dealing with that he's had to overcome to some degree. So I just think it's too early.
Well, I mean, they talk about how his race is cattle, and that they're basically all like really, really worried about dying. And
yeah,
I mean, first of all, I really disliked that conversation, but
okay.
I think it had to do with kind of like you get like this almost mystical sense that he can like sense when people are about to die. But then the reason why that's as bothersome as it is because like 40 million light year mind melds. Just straight up fucking magic shit that is happening.
I didn't like that either. Again, though, with the Saru thing, none of that bothers me. None of that. The sense the coming of death, the sort of almost mystical, I guess, application is kind of what you're getting at of that. I don't find any of that particularly bothersome. I just think it's fertile territory for a character who could become interesting, assuming that the writers are up to that task.
Okay. I went into watching this show kind of like I went into watching the first Matrix, because I think I watched the first Matrix like opening weekend when there was no one there, because I, like everyone else, thought it was going to be a completely shitty movie that just had amazing special effects. And I was like in the mood for some special effects. And you watch it, and legitimately the first Matrix is a masterpiece of
okay, yeah. I mean, it's a good movie. I don't know about masterpiece, but
masterpiece. It's a Citizen Kane, Casablanca, The Matrix.
The Matrix. Why didn't Keanu get that Oscar? It was fucking
well, it wasn't on the strength of anything that he did. It was probably more. It's actually the themes of The Matrix that make it more interesting. And anyway, without getting too sidetracked, I wrote a list because I had very low expectations. It should have been easy to limp over them.
Okay.
I wrote down things that I liked first.
Okay.
These are Star Trek things that I like.
Okay.
I enjoy the look of the phaser pistol.
Okay.
Even though it is a continuity error.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Jesus.
I like the look of the transporter beam, and we have all been primed not to care what transporter beams look like as long as they look neat.
Sure.
I think that they actually did a pretty decent job of the Admiral's badge / rank insignia and
Okay.
differentiating that. I didn't really like the whole metal badge thing with the as you notice, most of these things are relatively small.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy that the writers seem to at least understand that matter and antimatter have something to do with Star Trek, and that mixing them together goes boom.
Yeah, it does go boom.
Do you have things you want to say that you like about this show? I know we're sometimes more critical than we are praising.
We are.
So
things
we
that
expect perfection
Yeah.
because of the high quality work product that we put out.
That's true. That is true. Every episode of WNG, a completely flawless production.
Especially last week,
Even
where you went
1,
on a 50-minute drunken rampage.
God, things I like. It there. Oh, okay. Actually, the substantively, the thing that I really, the thing that I did like, has to do with this attempt now, I think, to develop the Klingon culture. So I have always felt personally that the Klingons, that there should be at least a house or a strand of Klingons that is enormously and absurdly religious in nature. That has always made sense to me because of how ritualistic that culture has been. And so to see this attempt to kind of develop that, to see Kahless as a kind of messianic figure, and to treat him as such, and to have a house that treats him as such, as though he is the fulfillment of a prophecy of some kind for the Klingons as a species. I really like all of that. I love how ritualistic it is. I'm excited to see. I really do enjoy the Klingons. I think they've been a frustrating race, I think, throughout, to some degree, the life of Star Trek as a franchise, because you only ever get the warrior side of it. You only ever get, well, they're basically just a bunch of fucking badasses. And they have these weird rituals here and there, but it's little more than honor in battle. So I like I like that the show is at least attempting to flesh that out a little bit. And I like that it's on these kind of religious lines, because I would say that does fit within the Klingon culture. So I like that attempt. At least I like that they're at least trying with that. Some of the stuff surrounding that, some of the plot points, I think, are a little absurd, but I do like at least that they're paying attention to that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue so much with them trying to flesh out the houses.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with them making one more religious than the other.
Yeah.
I certainly don't think that Worf's explanation that they just got rid of their gods because they were too much trouble is going to be universally held.
No,
belief.
I do.
Because, like,
I do love that, but yeah. At the same time, it doesn't make sense with how much attention they give to Stovacor and afterlife and all of and the rituals, like the death ritual, all of that stuff. I mean, of course there's a religious kernel in all of that.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, it's definitely, I guess it would be kind of like people who draw a line between religion and spirituality today.
Yeah, maybe.
That people can believe in an afterlife without believing in a specific living, breathing God. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
It is.
I didn't have an issue with that. I had another list that was things that I like for other reasons than that they are specifically Star Trek-y.
Okay.
I like the force fields that protect the hull breaches.
Oh yeah, well we've seen that before, right? I mean that's been in Trek.
I don't think to this degree.
Yeah, probably
there
not
was
to this
like
degree, but yeah.
So there were several levels of force fields.
Yes,
and it was like, oh, that's
they had a
interesting.
lot of backup. Yeah, definitely.
Why don't you make the ship out of
right?
that?
The whole ship should be force
so
fed.
that
It'd be like Wonder Woman's invisible jet a little bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a longer list of things that say things that I don't like.
I'm sure.
Which is not to be confused with the further list, which is called things that fucking suck.
Okay.
So do you want to go down the things that I don't like?
Yes, I can't wait to hear them.
Scene 1. Actually, it's actually scene 2. But scene 1 with our Federation friends.
Okay.
Let's break the Prime Directive and talk about it while we do it.
Okay, so fine. But here's what I actually like about that scene. The Prime Directive, as we have seen through a number of iterations of Star Trek, is fucking wide open to interpretation. And I do not really have a significant problem with their approach to the Prime Directive on this issue. If they don't know that we fucking jumped in and like helped cure the drought for this planet, then we haven't really violated the Prime Directive. I don't have an issue with that. It's the kind of dogmatic approach to the Prime Directive that fucking drives me insane and makes people like Captain Archer seem like genocidal maniacs.
And that's also the reason why we are going to be discussing, I think, the Prime Directive.
Okay. Yeah.
At length at some time in the future.
Yes, we will. But it clearly indicates that it's open
me back to
Star
Trek.
Sorry.
It took me back to Star Trek Into Darkness, which is a dark place.
Yes, it is. I know.
And and that one opens the same way.
Kind of the same way. Kind of.
We wanted to to make it so that they didn't notice, but that one didn't go right.
But it was insane. So. Their approach was absolute lunacy. Like the approach to they can't know about us, but at the same time, let's infiltrate this culture. And for some reason, Kirk steals like their holy scripture, and that's what leads to a chase scene. None of that. It's just like their motives are at odds with the actual plan that they implemented. That's like, there's so much wrong with that scene that the internal logic doesn't even hold up. So I can't say
this was not as bad.
Yeah.
but it certainly reminded me of,
and then it's Spock who's the brains behind it. Like, there's so much that doesn't make sense about that opening scene, and that they decide to hide the Enterprise in the ocean. What? Why can't you just transport to the planet? Like, there's so much wrong with what's going on in that scene.
But it looks so cool.
It's so stupid. So no, I get where you're coming from, but this is not nearly that. Like, not nearly as bad and as problem and error filled as that first scene of Into Darkness.
Okay, Death Ship has the brightest light bulb ever, which reaches all points of the universe within 5 minutes.
So, I'm not gonna criticize you on that. There's a lot.
I hear there's a new star in the sky because magic. I'm a magic Vulcan.
I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get that either. And it's
Starfleet
annoying.
It is annoying. I get the subspace. At least they said subspace.
They did say subspace, which does everything. But yeah,
subspace is accepted magic.
It is. It is.
Light has a defined speed. I believe that sometimes it is called the speed of sound. Probably.
Okay.
Speed of sound.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Starfleet is a peaceful organization, but if you say you've seen a Klingon ship, they will send 20 starships to say hello.
So that didn't, because technically that was the outskirts of Federation territory, apparently. And I actually really enjoyed the Saru's like, we should get the fuck out of here, because, which made sense. I mean, like, from his perspective, tactically speaking, that's not a completely irrational decision. But I do like that's where I actually kind of liked Michelle Yeoh's character a little bit. She's like, this is a Federation territory, so they can go fuck themselves. That I was completely on board with that. But I mean, they are Klingons, so it doesn't seem irrational to, like, let's say hi, but let's make sure we have some backup.
It's fine. It's just I didn't like it.
Okay.
It seemed like not a Starfleet action, and I've seen a lot of Star Trek, as you have.
Yeah.
And I could not create a parallel in my mind that there would ever need to be that many ships. And I also kind of feel like it's blowing your load early in the series.
I agree with that particular comment, and I think that's characteristic of this pilot for sure.
I would like the Federation to buy some fucking lights.
Okay.
You can, like, mount them in such a way that they don't need to create lens flares. But seriously, why is Michael Burnham's character essentially being court-martialed in utter darkness?
That was stupid. I agree. That was a stupid presentation of that. That made no, like, why is this a sinister? I agree. That was just dumb. That was dumb. It's so stupid. Like, it's the Federation. I mean, they're pretty upfront about a court martial. Here's the fucking problems that we have with your conduct. I don't know why we're cloaked in shadow. It's a little stupid.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are you being court-martialed by? Like Section 51?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Shadow organization of the Federation. Stupid.
That's such a 90s thing.
Yeah.
And it probably is it's right there too.
Yeah.
I had this under sloppy bad writing. There is no sense of camaraderie on the Shinjo. That Michael and Saru appear to hate each other quite a bit, which is fine. It's just not very Star Trek-y. No footprints in the sand, then footprints in the sand when you need them. Fucking stupid. It's just stupid. I'm gonna draw a giant Delta shield to remind you that you're watching Star Trek.
Okay.
Can I make an aside so that we can talk briefly about the opening sequence of this?
Like you mean the theme song, or
the theme song and the visuals?
Okay.
I don't mind the theme. I don't think it goes anywhere. I think it mostly is.
Yeah.
I think it is inoffensive and not memorable.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is to say, I can hum all of the other theme songs. But
but I don't know. I mean, after 7 seasons, I wouldn't say that the Voyager theme or the DS9 theme are particularly memorable, and the Enterprise theme is memorable for how god awful it is. So, yeah.
It's been a long time getting from there to here.
Please kill me. Please fucking kill me. Jesus Christ.
It's been a long time.
God.
But my time is finally here. I can see.
I'm pretty sure as you're singing this, people are fucking dying because of it.
Hopefully they're the right people.
They should be the right people.
So it did excel over Enterprise in the sense that it was inoffensive.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's job number one.
I got like this strange sensation as I was watching it. I had seen it earlier and I didn't think that it was actually the opening, because it's just like, this feels like an advertisement. This is like, do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
That's this whole fucking
communicators.
Well,
do you remember phasers?
That's this series, and that's the Orville.
Do you remember the hand thing?
Yeah.
You're like, Okay, you're gonna have to do better than nostalgia because I can watch any Star Trek episode at any time.
Yeah.
And I will have probably forgotten a little bit of every episode.
Yeah. Well,
so it's like
similar criticisms apply to the Orville, but yes.
particularly with the drinking habit, like I forget things all the time.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't Akashi.
Star
I've
Trek
never
is
seen
constantly
Akashi
new.
before, so yeah, I agree.
I did see somebody put it into negative, which makes it blue and black rather than tan.
Okay.
Or it's blue, black, and white rather than tan and black, and it looks like way better.
Well, like blueprints, right? Because that's what most of the theme is, isn't it?
Pardon?
Well, the black, right? You're still talking about the theme, right?
Yeah. It would make more sense, yeah, if they were
as
blueprints.
Yeah.
As opposed to
it's like
manila prints.
Fucking, I don't know,
think I've
like
ever heard
papyrus. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have no strong feelings about this.
No, I don't. I think it's fine. I think it's serviceable. It doesn't piss me off as bad as Enterprise does. So, fine. I don't care. Like Enterprise, like I'll skip this theme, but I won't I won't feel a kind of sudden surge of panic to skip this theme when I'm watching the episodes as I do
'Cause I got
with Enterprise.
faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'd rather blow my brains out before hearing the first fucking note of that song. I'd rather be dead. I don't want to think about suicide when I watch Star Trek. So, especially the goddamn theme song.
I wrote this down, and actually, upon further review, I don't think it applies.
What?
It does apply a little bit here. I wouldn't leave Saru in command. And send the first officer and the captain alone on an away mission.
So I agree. I mean, that part of me is like,
but
what the fuck? It never makes sense with how they decide who to send on some of these away missions. So
absolutely,
whatever the fuck.
Well, when you get to the Picard era, it actually starts to make more sense, and then when you go back to DS9, it starts to make less sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cisco does whatever he wants.
Which is, man, goddamn, Benjamin Sisko. God damn it. Oh, I love him.
But like with Picard, you're like, I send the first officer. Riker's gonna go on all the away missions.
Yeah. Send that bearded fucker down. Yeah.
Yeah. Even without beard.
Yeah. Which
he still did the job.
He did, but ugh.
Yeah, I prefer him with the beard
for sure
and the season 3 uniforms. It's all good.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah. So I've got enough. I want to say I've got enough Akashi in me right now to at least say that Michelle Yeoh is in her 50s. She is in her 50s.
Mm-hmm. She looks good.
That's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
That's unbelievable to me. All right, so moving on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I could still go out and get myself a wife, and Michelle Yeoh and several others make a very compelling argument towards trying to find some cute little Asian girl,
right?
Because
holy shit, like, is there any expiration date? What a terrible thing to say.
I think, but like the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure that I will die of a heart attack before like that goes south. Yeah,
I'm sure. I have no doubt about it. All right, let's move past this.
Do you want to say things that you didn't like, or do you want to just jump straight to things that fucking suck?
Let's jump to things that like I have a fucking problem, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I have a fucking problem with the way the Klingons look.
I wanted to start with Klingons because clearly they are the biggest elephant in the room. Yeah. And that elephant has been doused with acid. Yeah. And is horrendously disfigured.
I'm not ashamed to admit, I mean, it may strike some as a shallow criticism of the show. When we originally saw the trailers for this show, I thought, like, what would be interesting is if we have kind of a renegade house of Klingons that looks fundamentally different from the majority of the species, and has this incredibly religious attitude toward the destiny of the Klingon race and how they see the figure of Kahless. All of that. I was like, that could be really fucking interesting. But that's just how all Klingons look, apparently. This is just how all Klingons look. And it immediately erased it seemed like an opportunity to explore this particular timeline in a distinct way with a distinct house of Klingons that we haven't heard of before, which I think could have been incredibly rich. And all of that's gone now. All of that's gone. Right?
All right. It would be like, at this point, I think that the Klingon look, the ridged forehead, bald or not bald, because you have some bald Klingons, and they look like badasses. Yeah. But like, these people are indistinguishable from space orcs.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
And particularly with T'Kuvma, who seems to have maybe the worst makeup job of any of them. Like, it looks like he's had a stroke on the left and the right side of his brain.
Yeah.
Because his face doesn't move.
And exactly. It's increasingly
so much makeup that they can't even act.
Yeah, it's incredibly apparent where like the human body ends and the fucking makeup begins on him, which is a total disservice to his performance, I'd say.
I'm not even sure you could call it a performance. They stuck like a giant prosthetic set of teeth in his mouth, and he just sounds like a dying beached seal or something.
I don't know. I did enjoy actually some of his. Yeah, I actually liked his dialect. I liked what he was. Yeah, I actually enjoyed all of that. His speech patterns kind of made him more interesting, but his inability to have any fucking facial expressions really diminished. Maybe that's why he leaned so hard into the dialogue, because he knew his face wasn't going to be able to fucking keep up. I don't know.
But like the meter at which he's speaking is just, it's so monotonous that it's just like he's reading off like a teleprompter that has like phonetic nonsense on it.
But that's kind of that's actually kind of why I enjoyed it, is because it's almost dogmatic in its approach. Like that's sort of what I thought was cool about him and cool about his house. Like, I liked that this is fucking scripture, but this is just how it is. So yeah, I am reading off of fucking like all of this stuff has been, I am just doing what I am being told and what I am being guided to do. I kind of actually enjoy that approach to it. So, yeah.
Is there any part of the new Klingon thing other than that there is a sect that is very religious that you did like? Because I kind of felt like it was a complete strikeout.
No,
and I don't know why you would change that. I don't know why.
I don't know either. I don't know why you would change it either. Yeah, I agree. It's just like I said earlier, like it's just another fucking hurdle that you have to get past. It's more fucking baggage that's in the back of your fucking mind that's separating you from the experience of this particular story. I don't understand the motivation behind that. And it's going to continue to distract me. Like,
I don't like their costumes. They're ornate and they're fantastic. Yeah. And if it was like Dragonlance and Knight of the whatever, Knight of bad guy wants to wear that, fine. It's fine.
I would be into it if it was just that one house. I would be into it. Otherwise, but it doesn't seem unique to them.
But then they hail the ring wraiths, and they're standing above them like giant monuments.
Exactly.
And you're like, why is that?
Exactly.
Why are those guys uniformly green? Like, if you looked at it, you're like, well, they're uniformly green. They're like up there. They are exactly ring wraiths.
Yeah.
Standing above, looking down on him.
Yeah.
And then like Admiral Europa man gets on the comm. He's in full color. He looks great.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so
Yeah.
I guess it's not just that they have shitty like holographic things. It's that they just all want to look like on ring wraiths.
Maybe.
It's basically fantasy and space
Yeah,
now.
maybe.
And
I don't know. That's one of the things that's always bugged me about the Klingon race. It's like, who are your fucking scientists? Everybody's got a bat'leth and everybody's a fucking warrior. Who the hell developed warp technology? So, you know.
well, they do have Klingon scientists because you do see it in like is it Divergence? That the late season or the late in the series pair of episodes that somebody's stolen the mutagenic virus and is trying to make super Klingons. Like he was a scientist.
Oh,
Also
Jesus.
in the Drumhead, you have the exchange student scientist who's accused of trying to blow up the warp core. There's another one
that one.
in I think DS9 who complains about not getting any respect.
Yeah.
So we do see them. They're kind of, I mean, it's like a caste system, and that makes sense if it's a warrior society that you're like warriors are like number one.
Yeah.
And everybody else is kind of, background painting stuff.
Yeah. But you don't get much of that. And that's
you don't.
It's hard to figure out like exactly where, like, who are your fucking janitors? It's hard to figure out like where that stuff fits in this culture. And I don't know, man. That's where I think Discovery's strength could potentially lie. Is in the development of that.
They're gonna have to make a really amazing recovery.
Eh.
So the Bat'leth's new silly design apparently does have a purpose, which is to create an immediately silly story reason for it to have a suicide spike.
Yeah.
Also, what's the point of wearing armor if, like, what is a Bat'leth made out of? Lightsabers?
It's like way better than the fucking armor, I guess. So
Klingon armor is Star Trek so
bullshit.
bad it can't withstand a hit with a sword, but it's so good that phasers are basically useless.
Yeah. Maybe the Bat'leths are made out of some kind of like awesome science magic. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I don't really
seems
care,
like they are made out of science magic. There was so much like hubbub about the torchbearer armor, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, it looks dumb.
Yeah.
And then this guy's on there. He swings once and he dies.
Yeah. I know it's stupid, but I love that it's ceremonial at the same time. And I hope to God that they actually like will develop that a little bit, because I love the ritualistic and ceremonial aspects of Klingon culture are ripe for development. So if this show is going to be good and distinguish itself, it's going to focus on stuff like that.
If that guy made it to Stovacor, it's because they're handing out participation medals to get in. Because,
Assuming
like,
there is a
seriously,
Stovacor,
he got bested by an unarmed person who wasn't even trying to fight him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He basically killed himself.
Well, that's fair. People in ceremonial positions that's not always your best guy. So
then for some fucking reason, they load him in a coffin, and that coffin somehow, through I assume magic, because everything else is fucking magic in this, affixes itself to the hull. Yeah. That fucking sucked.
Who cares? Who cares? What did Enterprise
do?
They
didn't explain how it worked.
It doesn't matter.
How does it work? Yes, it does. It absolutely matters.
How do the shields on Enterprise work? It
absolutely matters.
They just say polarize the hull plating, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess that deflects phaser fire. I don't know. They just say it, and who cares? Like,
no, you have to explain that. You can't just say, like, this guy and this guy make an egg.
It's magnets.
And then all of a sudden...
It's magnets. They use magnets.
It's not magnet. They didn't even tell me it was magnets. Actually, you could argue that it was the mass of the spacecraft creates its own gravity.
No, that's ridiculous. It is a gigantic space. I mean, that's true. but no.
But I don't
it's
think
magnets.
it would. I don't think it would be enough to actually
metal
keep
and metal.
all of those things.
And they
Here's a
polarize the
stupid
fucking
thing.
hull plating, and that's what makes the magnetic.
Here's a stupid thing. Like my argument there was actually just to make fun of your ridiculously stupid Orville.
No, you are
last week.
you are exceedingly wrong on your Orville. You are exceedingly wrong on your Orville criticism.
trust me,
because
you'll
I
have
don't know
time
how
to
you
talk about it
measure
in just a bit.
I don't know
You can
how
just
you
calm
measure
down,
the ethical
stop bitching
implications
about
of
it.
something
You can just
without
stop bitching
understanding
about
the
it.
practical
It's coming up.
reality.
This is not a
that's
good
the
way to
issue.
run a podcast.
So I'm just saying that you're wrong. But anyway,
Here we go.
Go ahead.
Here we go.
This Akashi is good stuff.
I'm gonna have to get some more in a minute.
I'm on glass number 3, so
I didn't bring it up with me. I poured myself basically 3 glasses into one mug. and
really.
it's
That seems like a lot.
it's-
See, I drink out of a tumbler because I got some fucking class. But yeah,
well, this is a sculpted copper.
you're drinking out
mug.
of your fucking
No, this is
Oh,
a different one.
okay.
I have several very interesting.
Well, you do have a drinking
glasswares.
problem, so
I do have drinking abilities.
it's a problem manifested in your glassware. But yeah,
Okay. Yes, that's what's gonna. This is an intervention. You have too much nice stuff to drink out of.
That's clearly like wow. Places a lot of importance around the drinking.
I also feel like we should say, what happened to Klingon ships?
Yeah. I guess they're made out
Like-
of scale mail. I don't know. I don't know.
You look at the Enterprise ships,
Yeah.
and they look like low tech
Yeah.
stuff that has at least some fundamental design principles similar to the new
Yeah.
The
They
new
have like a
stuff.
saucer
all the stuff.
and a tail. And yeah.
This looks like they fed a computer a random number generator requests for give me 24 ships that look evil,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what spat out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about it. It's more like continuity baggage, really. I don't have a fundamental issue with the way that the ships are designed, but it is just more continuity baggage.
Do you want to talk about continuity baggage?
I don't really. I don't really, because
I do.
I think it's
I have
pretty
a list.
evident. I just think it's
I have a
incredibly evident, and there's nothing really like substantive to say about it. I think like to speak to the substantive weaknesses of this show is reasonable. And the primary one is, do you like Michael Burnham as a character? And if not,
Fuck no.
exactly. If not, isn't that kind of a huge glaring problem with this show going forward? I'm on the same side. I don't really like her as a character either. The show is going to be in desperate need of a kind of ensemble approach in order for it to really move forward. I mean, seeing like some of the little preview of episodes to come, I am a little bit interested in that, and I'm going to continue to watch this show regardless. I mean, I like, it's Star Trek. It's like X-Men. I'm going to fucking keep looking. I'm going to see everything that's produced in the future here. So one way or another. But yeah, I mean, the biggest weakness is you've put the entire weight of this new Star Trek series on one singular character. And if that character is not likable, who do you fucking expect to really watch this? That's a legit complaint, I think.
She is wildly irrational.
She is.
Like,
Every
other line sounds like a person who is high on meth, and then the next line is a Vulcan.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make any sense.
It does. It doesn't. She's too like, I don't know. Like I liked I originally kind of enjoyed in the first episode her kind of like I don't know, just sort of gung ho, throw caution to the wind approach to we're here to discover new places. Like we're here to explore the universe. I can totally get behind that. How that's informed by her Vulcan upbringing, I can't really say or justify. But I like that element. But then the whole like the decision to mutiny, the decision to attack the Klingons based on what her dad told her via a kind of incomprehensible mind meld action. None of that really makes sense. None of that follows. And all of that is a disservice to her as a character. So I don't want to follow someone who is wildly emotional and irrational. My God, that is not what defines Star Trek. It is not about following people who are completely irrational. It's about it's about intellectual consideration for legitimate ethical and moral issues, exemplified in characters like Picard. And I think, to a somewhat like darker degree, certainly Sisko, especially during the war with the Dominion, some of his decision making where he's considering sort of the ethical implications of how to involve the Romulans in the war versus that need for that desire for survival versus that conflict with what's ethically okay to do. All of that is what Star Trek is really about. And Michael Burnham so far just feels like someone who is reacting to emotion, who is reacting to trauma. And I don't know. That's not a great That's not a great character. It's certainly not a great character for Star Trek, I guess.
I'm going to go briefly down the list of continuity errors that I saw.
Okay.
I'm going to do this in an order that is of escalating importance, which is basically that basically all of these aren't all that important, except for the last one.
Okay.
This episode takes place basically the same time that the Cage takes place.
Oh, does it really? Is the Cage 10 years prior to? The
Cage is 10 years prior.
Is it really?
All of the uniforms and phasers and everything is wrong.
I did not know that, but okay. All
right. At this point, Starfleet was theoretically building starships with uniform parts in different configurations.
Okay.
Which is not a big deal. I didn't think that the ships looked ridiculously overdone.
Yeah.
But I feel like there were probably a few too many unique characteristics among them.
Okay. So I don't want to interrupt you. One of the things though that I actually appreciated about Enterprise was its approach to the ship design. Even though you could argue that it looks like it's more advanced than the original series, I did like the kind of submarine approach to the design, that it's incredibly industrial and incredibly cramped in nature. That at least felt like an overture toward, this is what intergalactic spaceflight, would have felt like in the beginning of the Federation. So sorry, but
I agree there.
Yeah.
And I will briefly say, I don't know that there's any ship that has the bridge on the bottom of the saucer, but I actually did kind of like that.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'm not uniformly negative. I went into this expecting it to be really a terrible show, and it didn't even rise to that level. But I do recognize the things that I liked in it.
Yeah.
And actually, it was kind of cute when the Klingon ship comes out of orbit or out of cloak.
Okay.
Which, never mind that the Klingon should already have cloaking technology here.
I know.
That they weren't actually on the same plane. Like,
Oh yeah, I
the
appreciated that
Shinjo
too.
was at like a 45-degree angle to it. And you're like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
Now there's a perfectly reasonable answer to why they usually are on the same plane. It's because the galaxy's basically a giant pancake.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me at all.
No.
And it does imply a certain three-dimensionality that you usually don't see in Star Trek.
I agree.
Except for Star Trek 2, which is brilliant.
That is true. That is true. The flying over it. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't really like the transporter room. I don't understand where the 1970s speaker transporter technology came from.
Yeah.
I think you can explain that away, but I just think it's strange that you have a north-south on everything from Enterprise to the end of Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and then all of a sudden you have 1970s speaker technology.
But one of the things I did actually like about the transporter is that Michelle Yeoh and Michael Burnham would transport with their weapons drawn and aimed in front of them. I did actually really enjoy that.
It does make sense rather than
just
anything
whatever
else.
Yeah.
Though I do think they do that in the cage, which would imply that it's nothing new.
I can't remember because it seems like they just discarded that for every other subsequent episode.
Since the very first failed pilot episode.
Yeah.
And until that moment. Yeah, weird. Pretty much. I didn't like that there were holograms everywhere because I didn't understand how the technology was going to work.
Yeah.
And like the square footage seems to be an issue.
It does.
This did actually happen on Deep Space Nine when it was kind of trumpeted
new
to us as new. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So that was weird.
And even then it was just like, you guys are just too fucking lazy to put a TV thing. Yeah. You just want him to stand in the same room. There's nothing wrong. And us to pretend like he's not there.
Like there's nothing wrong with the fucking Klingon makeup as it is today. There's nothing goddamn wrong with putting it on a fucking television screen. So,
Yeah. Well, how many? I really question 3D movies and 3D technology in general because like
3D movies
I feel like I'm going to start pressing things I don't mean to, and I don't think it's all that useful.
Well, that's true. And I mean, accounting for the fact that we're old, 3D movies are garbage. But yeah.
Yes. Yes. They make my brain hurt.
They do. It's like, why?
Why? And then the thing that really is a continuity error. The Klingons haven't had an empire in generations.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they definitely did an Enterprise, which is less than 100 years before this point.
Right. Slightly less, but yeah.
And you could argue that Sarek means that it's a Klingon generation. He certainly doesn't mean Vulcan generations because Vulcans live to be about 200.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Klingons live to be about 150. So I guess maybe just barely by the...
Yeah.
I mean, you have people who are estimating how storms come into the very second, which they're wrong about.
Yeah.
And then they have to do this. And it's just stupid. It's just stupid.
I agree. I agree.
And the last time that we see Starfleet before this is actually, or interacting with the Klingon Empire, capital E Empire, is in Enterprise, in the Divergence episode, and they seem to be, I mean, not friendly, but not exactly, we're not going to talk to you.
Yeah. Because
they were definitely working with Starfleet at the time.
Yeah.
It's the second section of Starfleet. That's just wrong. And it just is another example of nobody there really understands Star Trek.
It's just continuity baggage. Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard. Like if you said the Klingon Empire has been in disarray for the last 50 years, Like, how hard is that just to say, okay, now no one's going to be able to fact check us because there's nothing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than saying generations, and you're like, well, now you're already up to 110 years or so for Klingons, or 70, 80 for I don't know. This is just stupid. Just pay attention to the things that
I know
happen. I can get over the uniform thing, even though I think that the uniforms are really hideous.
I would actually like the uniforms a little bit more if they weren't so like textured a little bit. There's like a 3D element to it's like metal. Why are all the little stripes and stuff? Why are they all like metal and protruding from the
Do you notice that everybody's extremely thin?
Mm-hmm.
Like the only way for this uniform to work is if you are really thin.
Yeah.
Because like Doug Jones, thin.
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh, thin. Sonequa
No, that
Martin,
was true. Weirdly, that was true for TNG as well. Like those first few episodes. Why does everybody look kind of emaciated on?
Yeah.
I don't know why, especially
but at least like by the time you get to season 3, Riker looks like he fills out that uniform.
Yeah,
nice.
He's eating some chicken. He's eating some steak. Thank God. And yeah, he's filling out a little bit more.
But I don't know.
No, I
don't know.
I agree. I feel like a lot of this is just typical continuity baggage that seems so unnecessary, but at the same time, like, because it raises all these questions, you have to think about like, why the fuck are they approaching it like this? Why was this decision made? Why can't we just have something that's set after Nemesis or Voyager? Or why can't we just say, well, this is the Kelvin timeline, and this is right before Chris Pine Kirk shows up? Like, I don't understand, like,
it definitely looks more like that.
Putting all of those fucking hurdles in the way, I think, at least for Star Trek fans like you and I, it just creates a bunch of hurdles for us to have to try to fucking navigate. And I don't understand the intention behind that. I don't know if it was like, well, because at least those first 2 movies did pretty well, we want to try to hit this one area where maybe we can draw in, longtime Star Trek fans and fans of the new movies at the same time, in order to give us the broadest appeal to sell this fucking CBS All Access service to as many people as we possibly can. I mean, to me, that's kind of where I think a lot of these intentions land. I think that's where a lot of the thinking came from for this new series. And, I intend to continue to watch this series. I'm going to see every episode of this series regardless, because it's Star Trek. I'm sure as shit not going to pay for CBS All Access in order to do it, though. So that's kind of where I am on this.
I'm sure that you have legal ways to get around it.
Of course, there are numerous alternative and entirely legal methods to continue to watch this series. But yeah, that's where I land on this series. Is it enough to sell CBS All Access? I don't think so. But time will tell on that. And is it a worthy addition to Star Trek canon? At this point, I am dubious. But I will say, it's just a pilot episode, so I will withhold judgment, I guess, on that question.
No, at this point, it's a solid no. At this point, it is a solid no.
That's
it's
because
not
you are
irrecoverable.
You are the nihilist on this.
I'm not a nihilist.
You are the
I
nihilist.
have standards here, sir.
You are the nihilist. I am the optimist.
I have another 2 or 3 pages worth of things that fucking suck.
Christ. Okay.
I feel like James Frain kind of proved the thing that we both agree on, that pretty much Leonard Nimoy is the only person who has played a really likable Vulcan. I would give the silver medal to Richard Hatch from Enterprise, actually.
Ooh. Yes. What was it? What was his character's name? on Enterprise? I cannot fucking remember. I would, whatever. I wouldn't disagree with that assertion though. But Leonard Nimoy is far ahead of the pack.
Gary Graham
ahead of the pack.
Gary Graham is. Damn it,
man!
It's right there. It's fucking right there.
I can't. I just move past it. Move past it. Continue with your point.
So I kind of felt like he was awkward as Sarek.
Yeah.
And I don't part know. Of it's not his problem because part of it is that he's playing a magic space elf instead of a Vulcan.
Well, to a degree.
It's
the mind meld thing. Like that didn't make
Gary
any
Graham
sense.
is Soval.
Soval. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Because he has the arrogance and humility. He has a character behind just being a
prick, a fucking prick. But yeah,
but he's like kind of a cool prick. I like.
Yeah. He's not just a prick, which is what T'Pol often felt like. But yeah,
I would say that T'Pol more felt like a walking no machine, like a really sexy walking no machine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is good enough. I mean,
it's not. I mean, she had the
pretty on board. Pretty on board.
We're two fucking guys.
Better than fucking Tim Russ, who's just walking wet.
Well, that's because he didn't have any boobs, so
Well, I mean, the boobs help.
The boobs help a lot. The boobs are all of it, but yeah.
One other thing about Michael Burnham that we haven't talked about.
Okay.
She seems to talk a lot out of her ass. She seems to always have the right idea.
Yeah.
Even though it's completely wrong.
God damn it.
And it's so ridiculous because you're like, oh, but she has Vulcan training.
Right.
Like the Vulcan training was even dumb because it's like at one point they're like the Klingon homeworld Kronos.
Yeah.
And her answer is something like on bad diplomatic terms with the Federation. You're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what would have been a wrong answer?
Well,
like if I gave its XYZ in the Milky Way, would that have been wrong?
I'm not gonna.
If I said,
I'm not gonna fucking question the Vulcan
Class
testing
M planet
methodology. I know. Whatever. That's Star Trek.
They're
crap.
more precise than that.
No, that's
shit.
Star Trek crap. I don't have any particular issue with that.
Things,
but that she remains kind of wildly emotional and somewhat irrational despite all of that Vulcan training. That's a hard thing to synthesize. That's a hard thing to try to justify. Because I mean, even in her even in her earlier scenes when we see those flashbacks with her meeting with Georgiou, with Michelle Yeoh in the beginning, where she's basically just enormously and obnoxiously arrogant in the beginning. None of that, like, it's always frustrated me.
She is a full-on bitch. Yeah, the first scene.
and that's somewhat consistent. And if you look at like earlier episodes of Enterprise, for sure, that's fucking consistent with how. But again, Enterprise failed, I think, because of its somewhat stupid fucking approach to Vulcan culture, and this show fails along the same goddamn guidelines. So it's hard to fault it for that, I guess, when you compare it to the rest of Star Trek canon.
No, I disagree with that. I disagree because there are several good episodes where they are developing the human and Vulcan relationship with one another.
Yes.
And it's actually interesting to see that the Vulcans are kind of growing because the humans are asserting themselves, they're actually becoming better Vulcans.
I agree. Beyond the pilot episode, though. And that's, I mean, we still have to at least recognize the fact that we're judging Discovery based on its pilot episode. So there's going to be problems like that, like this, that manifest.
Yeah, I don't know that the preview showed us that they have any interest in doing anything.
I don't know. I guess we don't see. There's not much reason to believe that there's going to be a whole lot of. I see. So but I guess to kind of get off of this is a shit show train.
No, I'm not done.
I'm getting.
I'm
taking a slight detour to. I like that Michael Burnham's fate, the judgment of the Federation Council or whatever the fuck, all of that at least felt totally goddamn accurate. And you're like, yeah, she should be stripped of her rank. She should be sent to fucking prison. All that shit totally makes sense. I like that. And I am curious to see how she gets aboard Discovery, what the justification for that is, and what it looks like going forward. The preview at this point does give me some cause for interest. I am interested to some degree to see how that plays out, whether she develops some relationships with the crew of the Discovery, and this starts to feel a little bit more like Star Trek. I am at this point mildly or cautiously optimistic about that, and I do think that's at least worthy of to watch. That's there.
It feels a little bit like they're using indentured servitude.
A little, I don't know. I mean, she's in prison, and it sounds like the captain of the Discovery is like, "Hey, we need this fucking bitch for whatever we're trying to do, maybe with the Klingons." I have no idea what exactly the justification for that is going to be, but I am curious to see it. So I am not shutting down this show completely. I still feel like there's a little bit of potential there, but at the same time, I mean, I recognize the fact. Is it really what any of us as Star Trek, as like long-term Star Trek fans want to see? No. No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. And does it have potential? Maybe, but at this point, like, I completely understand and sympathize with a lot of the misgivings that long-term Star Trek fans will have toward this show, and I think they're entirely justified. But I'm not shutting it down. I mean, that's the only. I think it's a little too early to completely shut it down.
I mean, I watched Dark Matter, which is a pretty bad show.
It is a bad show.
I would say that on a whole, I enjoy it a little bit more than I've enjoyed this. But
I don't know.
I think this is eventually I will probably end up seeing it, if only to recapture my ability to say that I've seen every episode of Star Trek that's ever been produced.
There is that collector's mind. I mean, being a gigantic X-Men fan, I'm aware of the kind of collector's mentality toward I need to read and experience everything that has anything to do with the X-Men and Star Trek.
That said, I do have more stupid story shit.
Okay.
I will say, in the context of Starfleet, I do enjoy that there's such a thing as ethical protocols to save the life of a prisoner.
So that's interesting, and actually that kind of frustrated me at the same time, because I hate the idea of human beings confronting the ethical protocols of a fucking computer. It just seems stupid to me when you are raising obvious contradictions to what is apparently supposed to be an ethical protocol and defeating the computer in that. It just pisses me off a little bit. It's like, what kind of fucking computer is this? It doesn't recognize that, like.
This is still in the realm of things that suck. Aside from the fact that there would be some sort of ethical way of releasing prisoners.
Sure.
And I assume that there's some way to override that. I would certainly hope
guess
so.
it's weird that a prisoner can do that, but yeah.
There is no way that the computer should address a prisoner except in that circumstance.
Sure. Okay.
So if you're like, computer, well, how badly is the ship hurt? That was the response.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Not even, I'm not talking to you, just
Nothing.
straight up fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Also, I don't understand why there's nobody in that prison.
That was a
but
little
I
weird
guess-
too, but yeah.
I guess, whatever.
And that the entire
There's always-
the entire fucking hall blew up except for the goddamn cell that she was in. Like, yeah.
That was lucky.
Yeah, that was lucky.
I didn't like so much the arguing with the computer.
No,
that's how
I
you
thought it
saved
was a
her
little
life.
stupid, but yeah. I
But,
mean, there have not to say that there haven't been episodes of Star Trek that are as stupid as that, but
You'd have to, yeah.
I mean, certainly classic series. They did a lot of arguing with computers in the original series, like Landru. I submit to
But
you
that's-
that you're a fucking piece of shit and you suck for. Well, shit. I guess I do suck. I guess I'm just gonna short out and die. So
Yeah.
whatever.
But that was very that was very in the time.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
I thought it was very strange. Michelle Yeoh's response to, oh, I'm really sad that the person who just assaulted me might have been blown into space. Not everyone else who obviously fucking just died.
So not only that, but why don't I check? Like, maybe I should at least check on whether she's still alive. And if so, maybe I should try to fucking rescue her instead of leaving her to just argue with the computer about it. Yeah.
Well, it was also weird that Saru, who clearly hates Michael Burnham for all of her many character flaws, was like really worried about it. Like he says it and it's just like, it feels so out of character.
No, I'm not gonna. No, episode. I'm not gonna. No, I can't agree with you on that. Episode 1. I think Saru has the goddamn potential. I basically really just want him to have the potential that he can have.
My
based
next
on
bullet point
these
has
first
to
two
do with
episodes.
Saru as well.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
No fucking Starfleet officer would allow a captain to kill themselves, especially.
Well, but we see this shit all the time, especially Riker versus Picard. We see that shit all the time, all the fucking time. I don't want you to do this. I don't need you to do this. It's bad. You're the captain. It's bad. Meh. And the captain's like, go fuck yourself. I'm gonna do what I want. That's completely typical of the franchise as a whole. I don't have an issue.
Yeah, it's
with
usually not the captain killing themselves.
The captain did not kill herself. She was just like, I can take
She
a
was
Klingon.
going to.
And you're like, well, you are Michelle Yeoh, so I'm pretty sure that you can do whatever you fucking want.
She was going to.
Because I've seen you in Super Cop, and you were awesome in that movie. And you have been awesome in basically every movie you've ever been in. But, yeah.
Oh. My next bullet point just says, I loved you so much that I fucked all this shit up.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, from Michael's point of view, I'm not gonna debate with you on that. Michael's decision making doesn't make any sense. It's a total failure of the fucking writing. It's a complete failure of their ability to sell her character to us, to explain that kind of decision making. It feels like a fucking mechanical, just kind of left turn into the most melodramatic decision that she can possibly make, just to sort of heighten the drama for no other reason. So yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna fight you on that one. It's stupid.
I have one more, and this is going to transition into something else,
Okay.
probably fairly obvious. Do you want to say anything before I do that?
No, I don't. No.
Okay.
Except for that Michelle Yeoh is in her 50s.
Yeah, she looks great.
Yeah. Okay.
She's doing a good job.
Okay.
So clearly, this does not appear to be in the prime timeline. Discovery takes place in 2055.
Yeah.
which would mean that basically this takes place exactly the same time that James T. Kirk is a junior officer and Christopher Pike took command of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Wherever he is on that side of the galaxy, they're wearing strangely more attractive uniforms and have a ship that looks nothing at all like with what we see.
Yeah, I don't know. So, and maybe this was a question I was thinking about actually for you while I was watching this show, because you had said earlier. Now I am on the opposite side of you. I actually like that DS9 and Enterprise addressed the difference between, Klingons as we see them in TNG and basically every other iteration of Star Trek versus the Klingons of the original series. And that your opinion was essentially that I don't give a shit. Why is it, we don't need to explain that. It's basically just that makeup is better now than it was then. So in connection with that kind of line of thinking, does that apply still to the continuity issues as a whole for Discovery? The fact that they have holographic projection, the way the Klingons look in Discovery versus the way they look in any other series, does that line of reasoning still apply?
I don't think so, because in one case we're talking about aesthetics, and in the other you're talking about creating a system where, like, if you were to watch them in what is chronological order as far as the timeline,
okay,
you would be confused why they didn't use certain solutions to reach different answers in basically later Star Trek. So in that case, it's giving to them more tools than they ought to have available to them. And making everyone else seem the dumber for it. The Klingon thing is straight up aesthetics. And I don't understand why aesthetics is a part of philosophy, but my general feeling is that things can look however they want in Star Trek, and it'll eventually sort itself out. But I still don't understand why you would take something as iconic as Klingons and make it, well, not even functionally not cosplayable, but actually just hideous.
So yeah, I don't think it's as I don't have that kind of visceral reaction. I don't think it's like necessarily hideous. But with respect to your larger point, I don't find an issue with that. I think it's legitimate. And I think it just serves to question more, why make the decision to make a Star Trek series like Discovery that takes place when they've decided to make it take place, and still fuck with the Klingons, and still fuck with the continuity, and still fuck with the technology, and still put all of these goddamn hurdles in the way. All of that, I think, is an entirely legitimate beef. And it makes it harder to consider the show as just a show. Like, honestly, I feel like if you think about this as anything else, it's not that like, as far as science fiction, it's not that bad. It's actually pretty decent science fiction. And if it was called anything else, I might be kind of interested.
No.
But...
We're still not past the part that the main character is miserably unlikable.
I agree. That is a fundamental issue. It's a fundamental issue that the main character is unlikable, and that she's the only fucking person that we're allowed, that we can really latch onto. There's no other crew.
It would be at best below average science fiction, and as Star Trek goes right now, it is intensely
I don't know.
unlikable.
I mean, I don't know. Below average, I feel like is a little bit too harsh, because it's not like there's anybody in Dark Matter that's all that fucking goddamn compelling or interesting to like. That show just sucks from episode 1
I think that show's below average too.
Okay. So that we have a generally a pretty questionable main character. I agree. And that's I feel like for our review, at least in general, if we're finding any common ground here, that's the substantive issue with Star Trek Discovery is who's our main character? Is she likable? Does that even make fucking sense in within the Star Trek franchise? And it, honestly, actually, when I was watching this show, I was thinking a lot about Jessica Jones a little bit, where we had like Jessica Jones is a show that has just a plethora of plot issues and writing issues that are such a disservice to that character. But Jessica Jones is an enormously likable character and kind of carries that show forward. Whereas Michael Burnham, like, this show has some plot issues, but Michael Burnham is just not. Like, she's just not that likable, I think, as a character. And what does that, I don't know, what does that mean going forward?
It means that this is going to be a really difficult.
It means that
difficult.
I think that,
unless there's a turnaround.
Yeah, exactly. If the series is going to survive, I think it needs a bench. It needs to become something of an ensemble. And
we're going to get to the series survival too.
Okay.
I am not done with my bullet point.
Oh my goodness.
It is a long bullet point, and I appreciate that, like usual, you're being just a dick and interrupting me. So my point is that since James T. Kirk has already graduated from the Academy, he's already been taught about Garth of Izar, which means that Garth is still probably hot shit.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. This is still more continuity shit. It sounds like...
Okay. No. Follow me here.
Okay.
They don't talk so much about who Garth fought at the Battle of Axanar. And since it would be a bunch of... I mean, it could be nobody. Like, literally, it could be just he was fighting Azarians. That's certainly kind of what it sounds like when we meet him in Whom the Gods Destroy.
Okay.
Clearly, Prelude to Axanar posits the idea that it was the Klingons.
Okay.
Garth is not admitted as a resident to the insane asylum on whatever fuck planet until like 2268. So he is probably just fine right now, and you would expect him to be mentioned at some point in this series.
Sure.
I guess the segue here is it has become a little bit more apparent why CBS chose to sue the pants off of Axanar, having watched this.
I don't give a shit. If you want to talk about this, that's fine. I don't give a fuck about where Axanar fits into any of this or how Axanar relates to Star Trek Discovery.
Well, my question, and it was really just one question, is having watched Prelude to Axanar and having watched the first 2 hours of Star Trek Discovery,
right?
Which would you prefer?
Well, Star Trek Axanar,
to see
absolutely.
More?
Yeah, I don't have to even think about that. Axanar, absolutely. Axanar is in love with, the continuity of Star Trek, is in love with the Star Trek franchise as a whole, and I think does more honor to it than Star Trek Discovery does. That's not even that's not anything that I need to really even think about. But again, I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care that, like, the production staff behind Axanar seems to maybe love the Star Trek franchise more than Discovery does. I just don't care because, I mean, CBS and Paramount, they're both corporations. I expect what they're primarily interested in is how many fucking subscriptions can we sell to CBS All Access? What's the easiest? What's the path of least resistance there? well, maybe if we set it at this particular time where it doesn't really fucking matter if you know a whole lot about Star Trek or not, that's the approach that we should take. Whether it can fit into the classic timeline or the Kelvin timeline, that's kind of our sweet spot. I just don't give a shit. So is Star Trek Axanar more interesting to me as a Star Trek fan than Discovery? Yes, of course it is. But beyond that, I just don't give a shit. I mean, it's a corporation like any CBS and Paramount. They're corporations like any other. I assume that they're attempting to appeal to the most people that they possibly can, and I doubt that a lot of people, that the most people have seen fucking Axanar and give a shit about any of that. So I don't know. That's kind of where I land. I just don't care, I guess.
I see, I clearly do care to some degree, and certainly as this has come out, there's been a lot of further discussion about. I mean, just from a straight up fan perspective, you look at the two and you would say, I mean, clearly Axanar is the better production.
Yeah, as a fan, yeah, absolutely.
The 20 minutes they gave us to prelude to Axanar is good from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I don't have any issues with it. Now, I will say that it is like Discovery, focused on a fucking war. And is it doing the things that Star Trek did that really endeared us to the franchise? No, I don't think so. Are we really seeing like incredibly interesting ethical conflicts among characters in Axanar? No, I don't think so. Is it still focused on a war like Discovery is? Yeah. Is it more substantively interesting? No. Does it have a more respectful attitude toward continuity? Yes. Absolutely. And in that respect, it is better than Discovery, for sure.
I might disagree. I mean, granted, we only get 20 minutes of prelude to Axanar.
Yeah.
I think that they have said the right things in prelude that make me think that the full-on production would have tried to be more than just a space battle rama.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
The greatest fear that I have is undoing the dream that is the no, I forget it. But basically, Admiral Ramirez says that next to the Klingon Empire, he fears more undoing the dream of the Federation, which is nicely optimistic still.
Yeah.
Even though it's under a cloud of pessimism.
Yeah.
I think in terms of production quality, Axanar holds up. It holds up. It's fine for TV.
Well,
like
totally.
For TV, you look at it.
Yeah.
You're like, looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the Star Trek productions, in particular in Star Trek Continues, production wise, are fucking flawless. Absolutely goddamn flawless. But that's not where Star Trek lives and breathes. I think Star Trek Continues addresses and is more in line with where Star Trek lives and breathes for me, than Axanar, and then Star Trek Discovery, for sure. I think they understand the spirit of Star Trek more than any other production that is ongoing right now.
Yeah.
So, hats off to them for that.
I agree. I agree. I love Star Trek Continues because they have put a lot of effort into making it look like it was done in the 50s.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but that like they're addressing the themes. I think they're addressing really the sort of spirit of where Star Trek lives, more so than like certainly than Axanar. I don't find anything particularly compelling as far as like the spirit of Star Trek in Axanar. It's fine. It's interesting from a continuity point of view. but the kind of emotional, the spiritual, or the ethical content of Star Trek Continues far exceeds anything in Axanar or anything in Discovery. Shit, it exceeds it exceeds even Enterprise, and Voyager to a large degree. I think some of their willingness to explore some of these ethical conflicts. I don't know. I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That competes with canon. That competes with for sure Star Trek canon.
Well, I mean, Rod Roddenberry or whatever his name is.
Oh, is he the son?
Whatever Gene's son.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's Rod. I think he's also
Roddenberry. I kind of wish it was.
Or you, Rod Roddenberry.
Right, Rod Roddenberry. Okay.
He looks like a Rod a little bit
He
too.
does.
Anyway, he's basically said yes. If my father was alive now, he would expect his father to accept those episodes as canon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
kind of just about.
Yeah. I'd be honest.
Just about the nicest thing you can get from just about the most right person to hear it from.
Definitely, and I'd be on his side for that for sure.
There were a couple of extra smaller videos that came out around Prelude to Axanar from the same people that seemed to play up some of the other characters in it, like Soval.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think it had a lot of potential that maybe we will see. I doubt it, since it's gonna have to be like a half an hour long.
I know. Yeah.
It's so dumb. So dumb.
It is dumb, and I don't know. I don't care. Like if I could pick between Star Trek Discovery and Axanar, I would rather see CBS embrace Axanar and develop that. Absolutely. As a Star Trek fan, I would absolutely prefer that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But
show up at their door, say, "Can you make this for us for our platform next year?" And there you go.
But I think at the same time, it's important for us as Star Trek fans to recognize that bias and to at least attempt to approach Discovery from an impartial point of view. And that's why I think the continuity issues are legitimate to a certain degree. They absolutely are. But I think it behooves us to try to approach Discovery from a more independent perspective and independent of our allegiance to Star Trek continuity and Star Trek as a franchise. How does this show measure up? And I do think there are some legit criticisms. Chief among them is the character of Michael Burnham. Is she really enough to carry the series forward? I certainly don't think so at this point. And I think that, for Discovery to have any success, it's going to have to rely on, hopefully, the development of the characters among the Discovery, the crew of the Discovery. Is there potential there? Yes, I think so. But, it remains to be seen at this point.
It's possible.
It's possible.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I ain't counting on it.
And that's fine. That's fair. That's fine. I get it. I just, it's I think the part for me, Star Trek, one of the things that makes it such an important franchise and such an important piece of art is that it's one of the few things that we can point to that emphasizes a sort of optimistic perspective toward the future, and an optimistic perspective toward other cultures and things that seem alien, not only alien, but entirely contradictory to our own values. That those things, even though they may seem offensive to us, are worthy of consideration. That's where Star Trek, I think, lives and breathes for me. And that's what makes it so important and so vital as a piece of art. And so to shit on it after the pilot episode, I think is premature. And I think it's contradictory to the sort of Star Trek ethos that we've all kind of grown up on and been attracted to. So that's sort of where I'm at right now, is we have a duty, despite what we've seen, we have a duty to be optimistic. Moving forward.
Immanuel Kant would not call this a duty.
I think it is absolutely within the Star Trek ethos a duty to be optimistic, at least to be open-minded to episodes moving forward. And then, I mean, if they complete a season and it's a total fucking shit show, at that point, let's call it a shit show. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. But to judge it at this point does seem premature to me and in conflict with the Star Trek ethos that we are all attracted.
You said both of those things two or three times now.
The Star Trek ethos, is important to me. Tactic Angel. I don't know if you understand this. Let me restate my point.
Nope. Here's the thing. You're gonna get an opportunity probably here in 1 second because your mad drunken ramblings are going to
Japanese Akashi.
Yeah, I'm thirsty.
Thumbs up, Tactic Angel. Thumbs up.
Here we go. Are you at this point more interested in Star Trek Discovery or the Orville?
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's not it's Star Trek Discovery. We've seen, I assume we've both seen the 4th episode of the Orville.
Yes. So you are still watching it.
Yeah. I'm going to continue to watch that too, out of the same stupid goddamn allegiance that I have to Star Trek as a whole. I'm going to continue to watch the Orville until it dies. So yeah, I don't have any qualms about that at all. I am definitely more interested in Star Trek Discovery than I am in the Orville. Yeah.
Would not surprise you to hear the opposite from me.
I'm not surprised. So Star Trek, so the Orville episode 4, otherwise known as The World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky. Except done worsely. Done poorly. Done more stupidly than a far superior episode of the original series is my take on the fucking Orville. So that's where I am.
I didn't think that episode 4 was particularly noteworthy in terms of being either really, really good or really, really bad.
Yeah. So
I would say
it wasn't good.
It
wasn't good. And it wasn't completely terrible. It was absolutely the fucking. It was the dead center of mediocrity, if not a shade toward this is kind of worthless, and I don't know why this is even a series. But
I think it's. I think it was pretty solidly mediocre.
It's crap. It's crap.
I am going to briefly address, in hopes that you are a more sober person.
Okay.
This week than you were last week.
I'm going to do my best.
When you spoke for, as we've gone over, I think 55 of the 119 not 119 minutes, hour and 19 minutes, which would only be like,
well, clearly not enough.
79 minutes.
Clearly not enough if you're not on my side yet. So
here we go.
Okay.
I was clearly the one person who was going to be convinced by you saying the same thing 37 times.
Go ahead.
Wesley Crusher.
Okay.
Is playing around with some kids on Paradise Planet.
Okay. Oh God,
Wesley
Jesus
Crusher
Christ.
falls.
Yes, he does.
Into, I think like a garden.
It's like
that's
a garden.
Being constructed. Yeah. It's like a no walk zone.
Yes.
Like new plants have been planted. No walk zone.
Yeah.
He trips over a barrier, falls into it.
Yep.
And now he's sentenced to death.
Yes. Awesome.
Captain Picard decides that he's not going to allow Wesley Crusher to die.
Okay, yeah. He does.
Captain Picard takes a moral stance.
Yes, he does.
That his understanding of justice is superior to the people on the planet.
Yes.
Moreover, he takes a moral superiority over people who are clearly superior to him. Which is actually one step further, because that planet is guarded by a space station that exists in an extra-dimensional sense.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Can we please pause briefly so that I can go pee? I can get some of the Yokashi
and
out of my system.
I will go get something to drink.
Man, I can't tell you. That is probably the most, that's the most in pain I've ever been for a bladder issue. But we were talking about Wesley Crusher, so moving forward.
Wesley Crusher, I'm not done.
Okay.
Here we go. So, the Edu, which are the race of people who live on Pleasure
Garden Planet,
perfect
whatever the fuck. Yeah.
Planet.
Yeah.
With no war, with no crime, with nothing. None of the bad things. They have none of the bad things.
Yeah.
It's just perfect, idyllic.
Because they execute all of the bad things. But yeah.
Yeah. Any crime that you commit is punished by death.
Right.
No matter what it is.
Yeah.
Jaywalking, dead.
The murderocracy in perfect vision. Yeah.
So clearly this is something that you should agree with.
It absolutely is. But yeah.
So Picard says he's not going to let it happen. Yeah. But they know hanging over the planet is a space station that is in extra-dimensional space. They understand that the space station was created by a race of people who are so far advanced that they have ascended physical being into a sort of meta existence.
Okay.
And that group of people basically gave the law to the Edu.
Okay.
And yet we still get a situation where we have a preachy captain saying, no, it's wrong. My way is right.
Right.
My culture is better than your culture.
Okay. Yeah.
We figured it all out.
Yeah.
What is the substantive difference between Picard making that statement and whatever you want to get out of episode 3 of the Orville?
Yeah. So I would say in particular, it's because it's a member of his own crew. That's a completely human reaction to somebody who is the captain of a starship, who is now having to consider the life of somebody who has served under him and has served under him for some particular amount of time. That's part of what separates that. There's a relationship between Wesley Crusher and Captain Picard that informs Picard's decision making at that point. That's the substantive difference. But by episode 3 of the Orville, there's fucking nothing there. It is a completely ideological decision on Seth MacFarlane's part at that point. Whereas with Captain Picard, he can pretend and he can assert that it's ideological to some degree, but it's completely impossible to ignore the fact that there is an actual human relationship. That's what makes it mean more in Star Trek The Next Generation versus the fucking Orville, where there's none of that. There's no human element there. It's just purely and irrationally ideological. And that's the weakness of that show.
I have 2 comments to this. This episode is actually episode 7 of season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by and large, you would understand as a Trek fan would mean that it's not a particularly good episode.
No, it's not necessarily particularly good, no.
It's not necessarily particularly bad either.
Yeah.
However, Captain Picard has shown nothing but disdain towards children.
But he
up
is
to
a
this
living
point.
fucking person. He is a living fucking person and the son of Beverly Crusher at that. Like, the human element cannot fucking be ignored there. There is so much more content behind that decision.
You are forgetting one other thing.
Which is?
That they fully expect that he makes this decision fully expecting that the trans-dimensional alien race that really has I don't even think they have a name in this. They expect that they will basically kill everyone on the ship if they disobey.
Right.
That seems like a wildly irrational decision to say.
So you think
well,
Picard's
I want
decision...
to save Crusher's son, even though it will mean that Crusher's son and then everyone else will die too.
I'd have to watch the episode again because I don't think it plays out that black and white.
It really, really does.
I don't think it does. And when we consider the Orville, I mean, I have some issues with your comparison here because the Orville episode 3 is really about gender reassignment. There's no life and death issue on, like, there's none of that even exists in episode 3 of the fucking Orville. So none of that applies. And then 2, again, we have absolutely no understanding of this particular culture that at least claims that it's only male, and that only males are ever fucking born to this race, and that somehow, despite that issue, procreation is still fucking possible. None of that is fucking explained at all, and none of that. Not only is none of that explained, nobody even gives a shit apparently about how that even fucking works in the first place. So nobody cares about how often or whether a female is ever born to this particular race, whether that's considered a mutation or not. I mean, none of that makes any sense. None of that's ever even explored. So I guess I'm struggling a little bit with your comparison here, in that it seems to not really apply all that much, especially considering that the subject of the episode is a baby to this particular species, and that we're not even considering like what the parents' decision is behind whether that baby should be gender reassigned or not. I mean, this is a race of people passing judgment on a human character.
I did go back and rewatch the show as you suggested that I ought to.
Okay.
And at no point does Mercer say that he will not give up the child.
So he absolutely definitely does. And he definitely, he absolutely says that if he was to give up this kid to this other ship that's going to perform this gender reassignment, that he would be complicit in that action. And that's why he can't allow it. And then nope. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, and then after that, now we have a conflict between the two parents, which is legit. That's when the conflict becomes legit.
Quite literally, the only thing that he says is, "I have a responsibility for the safety or the whatever of the child," and he doesn't say what he's going to do about it. They basically go from that scene to talking about what if I'm wrong. So
how do you not see that?
And then they go to Rudolph.
How do you not see that as just extraordinarily bad writing? Because he's absolved. He is immediately absolved of that decision. He says he initially airs his concerns and his protests to the decision that the two fucking parents have made. The two parents are in unison about, we want to have this kid gender reassigned. And he's like, no, because complicit and whatever. And then they have their stupid asinine conversation about cleft palates and whatever. And then after that, right, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, now the parents are in conflict. Now the captain is absolved of his objections to this gender reassignment. That is such a cheap out. At the minute that the two parents decided, hey, we want to have this kid gender reassigned, and we're going to have this doctor aboard a completely different ship do it. Okay, right? Okay, I can have concerns about that, but I'm not going to stand in the fucking way of your decision. He's standing in their way at that point. He's standing between the parents and the kid. That's what's ridiculous about that episode. And then they just absolve it, and that's what's frustrating about it. That's shit writing. We don't have to explore the captain's decision.
I disagree with that, because like if you watch it and you just assume Mercer is a normal human being, the only emotion he's expressing in that scene is like, I'm really disappointed that you went behind my back.
No.
I am not comfortable with this decision, because I feel like I have an ethical responsibility.
So I'm not going to allow it.
And you can... No, he doesn't say that.
That's exactly what he does. He refuses to let them transport the kid. He makes that decision. This is largely... I don't give a shit that he's a person.
Your view of this being poorly written
is badly
informed
written
by your lack of critical viewing.
No.
Because he doesn't do that.
No, you are being overly generous toward this. You are being way too goddamn generous.
There are several dozen Star Trek episodes that I could probably go through and say, here are situations that could have gone in a different way, and I think would have been a more interesting way, or a more interesting examination of whatever moral principle we want to talk about up until this point, or after this point. If they did X, we could have talked about Y rather than whatever we did end up talking about. And that isn't necessarily a bad writing thing. That is a decision on what they wanted to write about.
No.
That said, I actually find both of these episodes to be completely reasonable.
No.
And I'm not saying that actually
No.
Jean-Luc Picard's decision to save the child based on his morally informed position is wrong. The actual
No.
the name of the episode is Justice.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
No.
Because
I think you're focusing too much on the answer. I think you're focusing way too much on the answer.
It's not even
not
the answer.
I am
focusing entirely on the question, because if you were to just look at it and you were to say the choice that was given to us in Justice was, do I want to save the kid knowing that he will die anyway and risk everybody else, or am I going to take a moral stand against that? And like, there's a powerful message that isn't necessarily even communicated, or isn't necessarily even the intent of the writers, that, you know, there are things like, if it's a real thing that you believe in, you ought to do whatever you think is right, rather than what you think the powerful would have you do.
That's one perspective. It's a stupid perspective, and it's not worthy of Star Trek.
The fun thing about it is that and I said this last week, though I don't think you probably remember, because I did not get very many words in. Otherwise,
your words are dumb.
Your mom's dumb. So it's so stupid. So I said last week, one of the things I appreciate about Star Trek, and one of the things I appreciated about the Orville, is that it at least asks questions and it sets up the thing. And I don't presume that the idea that is presented in the show is necessarily the right idea. And I don't expressly think that it is where your thought process ought to end, because it's not just about, Star Trek is, like a 700 episode Bible on film.
Okay.
And you need to go through and learn all the right think that it presents, because there are times that like there are legitimate moral questions. There are rational reasons to believe in the other, or in not the other solution, but any other solution, other than the one that they came upon. And really what makes Star Trek sort of an intellectual experience is taking what you see and then applying it to yourself and trying to dissect the the ideas, the maxims behind this, and see where they break, see where they work,
right,
and that kind of helps you towards a moral center, not necessarily strictly the writers telling you what you ought to think.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Is that your?
Do you want to leave it right there?
Fuck
and we can
no.
go on to the next question?
No.
Here we go.
No,
We're
because
go
here's
on
the
to
goddamn
next
no,
question.
because here's where that fucking breaks down. Here's where that breaks down. The Orville, do you really get the sense that the writers of the Orville are aware of that? Because I don't. I absolutely don't think
I don't
that
think
it is an examination.
The writers of Star Trek: The Next Generation were always aware of it.
And that may be true to a certain degree.
I mean, I love DC Fontana and the rest of them, but like there are times that you watch something and you're like, man, that is a weird episode.
Yeah,
what exactly am I supposed to learn about Deanna Troi having sex with a ghost that wants to kill her crewmates and reincarnates her dead grandmother?
Right, whatever.
What?
Here's where it totally fucking breaks down, though, is that like even in episodes of the original series, Errand of Mercy, when you really first see the Klingons, and you see the Organians, who are a completely peaceful species, the Klingons and the Federation are basically competing for their fucking allegiance. The Klingons are using a more militaristic approach and murdering fucking Organians, and they're like, we don't give a shit because violence is bad and we don't want to do anything. And Kirk has this kind of insane, like, oh my god, you're not even willing to fight for your own survival. I don't even want to have anything to do with you as a species. I find you so reprehensible that I can't even believe that I'm fighting for you. All completely. See, what's interesting about that episode is that Kirk's attitude toward that species is totally fucking legitimate. That here's a species that I can see doesn't even want to fight for its own survival. Doesn't even place a premium or a value on its own fucking citizens. Why the hell should I even care about whether they're subjugated by the Klingons or not? That's a completely goddamn legitimate and totally fucking human way to feel about another species. And then at the end of that episode, you find out that basically the Organians are like this entirely spiritual species, and they just manifest themselves as people and whatever. Like it's all a bunch of crap, but whatever. And one of the great scenes in that is when Kirk is talking about, well, there are like, I mean, you can't just have the Klingons basically riding roughshod over you and dictating their terms, and how offensive for the Organians to just completely to settle the war between the Klingons and the Federation, to just interject themselves in the middle of that because there are proper channels and all of that shit. And the Organians are like, so what are you fighting for here? The ability to conduct war against another species, the ability to kill innocents as needed because it's just a part of war. That's what makes Star Trek good. You have people who occupy positions that are completely relevant, and they're in conflict with each other. And how does that shake out at the end of the day? That's what's interesting about Star Trek. It's not that they're trying to identify a maxim of some kind as to what is the correct ethical approach. It's that they are examining it and coming to still this kind of weird gray area where you find out that you're defending principles that are completely honorable, but in the process of defending those principles, you are defending things like the ability to conduct war and the ability to kill innocents and all of that. That's what makes Star Trek interesting. The Orville completely misses the gray area of all of that. They're just like, gender reassignment bad, females good. That's the end of the episode. That's where it sucks.
No, I don't think that is fair. And actually, if you were to look at it today, and if you follow like the social justice warrior nonsense, particularly on the internet, you do run into a cognitive dissonance between like feminism that has traditionally supported like lesbian and gay rights versus the other sort of feminism that is okay with LGBT, or what is it? BLT.
Yeah, it's BLT.
GQ plus.
BLT.
It's BLT GQ plus.
BLT on rye.
GQ.
Yeah.
You need BLT plus GQ.
I prefer white
Boom.
bread. Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
So you got all that, and like there's a certain disagreement there, because it's like, on the one hand, you can basically boil it down to, if women are disadvantaged, and if you can choose your gender and it has nothing to do with your sex, then just choose to be male and you have gotten rid of the problem. And obviously,
choose to be white and male.
That's sort of a. I mean, I would choose to be white and male typically.
Yeah. Though I have to say, if reincarnation was an ability, I would actually prefer to be black, overweight, and an exceptionally good blues guitar player. Basically, I would like to be reincarnated as Muddy Waters. If I had my first choice, that would be mine.
Oh, yeah.
My God. Because
not
what a music. I mean, what a
Thelonious Monk.
No, because I don't want to play
you
piano
putting him
and I
down?
don't want to fucking play jazz. I want to play Muddy Waters, goddamn classic fucking blues. That's who
All right.
I would
Thelonious
like to.
sucks. I get
No,
it.
Thelonious is, I mean, he's fine. I don't give a shit about the piano, but anyway.
So anyway, that's basically the thing that it boils down to, is like it starts not to make a lot of sense, but at the same time, these people are used to crusading for something
Yeah.
that depending on where you are is like the end of the world, or not
Yeah.
much of an issue at all.
Yeah.
And anywhere in between. So like in this episode, strangely, you do have those two ideas squaring off against one another, because there is some question about, when can a child choose that they are transgendered, and when is it ethically?
Yes. Yeah. I
Like,
agree.
If a 7-year-old tells you that he's a girl, do
They don't
you
fucking
start
know.
giving him life-altering treatments today?
Yeah. I
mean, like,
appreciate all of that. Yeah.
That could be not a good idea. It might be a good idea. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
Of course.
I guess we'll just the
Of
really
course.
good way to do it is to take a control group, you put people in a control group, and then you take the other group and do whatever you want with them, and then just see how they go.
Yeah.
And
the
then
placebo,
70
the
years we'll
penis
figure it out.
placebo,
I don't
and
think
see
we're
if it
going to go
works.
about it in that in that sort of manner.
Sure.
Man, that would be a ton of data to go over, and
Yeah.
I can only imagine the conclusions that would be drawn. So in that sense, I look at that and I see what's happening, and I understand, particularly with the writing. I expected that it actually wouldn't have panned out for the crew of the Orville. And but at the same time, I was also surprised that they went that direction too, because it's like, it got surprisingly heavy, and then it got surprisingly it about faced again, and in a way that I didn't think was as sloppy as some of the kind of checking the boxes comedy routine that they do.
I appreciate your perspective on that. At the same time, though, I think it is overly generous. It is still crap writing, and it is still a crap approach to the issue. And it is not worthy. It's not worthy of, like, this is my issue with it. Here's the Orville is not, it's not particularly good science fiction, and it's not particularly good comedy. It fails on both fucking counts. And that's what frustrates me about that show.
It's a tricky combination, though. Admittedly, it's a tricky
Of course it
combination.
is. Of course it is. And sometimes it doesn't work. And the Orville hasn't figured out a way, I don't think, to make it fucking work really well. So it's not worthy of this kind of praise. I just don't think that I feel like we're making excuses Like, oh, it surprises me that it even engages this issue on a serious fucking tone. That's bullshit. I don't care. It's whether it engages it realistically or not. And if it doesn't, where does it fail? Is it crap because of that? And if it's not funny, why the fuck am I watching this in the first place? Like, that's kind of where I am on that show. It's not particularly good comedy. It's not particularly good science fiction. So what the fuck are we? I don't care if you expected basically a bunch of dick jokes and were surprised to find something slightly more substantive than that. That doesn't make it a good show.
Here's another thing. Part of the reason why I brought this up again today is the obvious comparison. But the other part of it is because I expected you to somehow argue that Star Trek Discovery is worthy of being Star Trek while being so vehemently opposed to the Orville being nowhere even nearly in the park. And
that's because
I mean, like at the end of the day, I'll just say it. I like Mercer and almost every fucking person on the Orville better than I like Michael Burnham.
And that's fine. I'm not gonna. I don't find any issue with that. That's fine. I don't care. But the Orville's not Star Trek, and if it was called Star Trek, it's worse. It would be worse than Star Trek Discovery.
Galaxy.
It's not even Galaxy Quest. God,
closer.
Galaxy Quest is better because Galaxy Quest was smart enough to at least make the kind of meta jokes about stupid, like Star Trek bullshit approaches to episodes, like the dumb stuff, to at least be aware of that. And even episode 4 fucking episode 4 of the Orville fails to make those kind of jokes and to have that kind of self-awareness. And that's what's so frustrating about that show. Like episode 4, right? It's basically the world is hollow and I have touched the sky. It's basically a remake of that, more or less, and a couple of other like science fiction novels sort of thrown in. But like they enter this gigantic spaceship. They enter it and it's like, holy shit, it's like a whole planet inside of this spaceship. Wow, that's crazy. There's a fucking door, right, that they just walk into, and here's this entire fucking world. And on this world, there's a civilization that doesn't know that it's on a spaceship and doesn't know that it occupies this spaceship and that there's a space outside of this fucking world that they live on. But there's a goddamn motherfucking door in the middle of the forest that somehow after 2,000 years nobody has fucking ever discovered. And when they attempt to make the case that, hey, there's space outside of this, you're actually on a spaceship, nobody's like, hey, there's a door in the middle of this fucking forest, we know right where it is and we could take you to it. But yeah, I don't know, we never explore that point. Like, it's just stupid. It's just a stupid ham-fisted approach.
I get it.
To
it's the same
fiction.
as a piece of the action.
It's dumb.
I mean, like some of the principles of it are absurd.
It's ham-fisted science fiction, and it's a ham-fisted approach to certain ethical and larger moral issues. It does not deserve the praise that earlier episodes of Star Trek, legit good.
I'm not even saying that it's it's great. I'm just saying, like,
it's not, but it's not good. It's not good. That's the point. It's not great and it's not good.
I enjoy the show,
which is fine. It's just not
the
good.
extent that if I were to watch one or the other, I would definitely choose to watch the Orville, which at least doesn't make me want to pull my hair out.
That's fine. But I think when we're looking at the Orville, what we're really looking at is a bunch of Pavlovian fucking dog bells. Like, it's just, do you remember the Enterprise? Do you remember with the Enterprise floating through space to an orchestral scroll? Do you remember communicators? Do you remember set phasers to stun? That's the fucking Orville.
Is this a serious thing? Is this happening?
I'm saying.
Are you saying this without
the Orville
irony to saying that the Star Trek Discovery
opening I agree.
Isn't basically exactly the same thing?
Discovery is playing on some of the same basic principles.
We did the little thing,
but plot wise, it's at least a little bit less irrational
Do you
and
remember the hand thing?
And less absurd than the fucking
The Spock
Orville.
hand thing?
Do you remember, like, hey,
And the communicator?
marriage
And the
marriage is
phaser?
hard. Divorce humor? Wow, I've never heard that before. That's really funny stuff. That's really like cutting edge fucking humor. I mean, give me a goddamn break. It's fucking middle of the road to shit science fiction, and it's middle of the road to
is better than
comedy.
Fucking horrible.
That's the Orville. That's what it is.
Here is my suggestion. Here is my suggestion for Star Trek Discovery episode from Wednesday Night Gentlemen. This is the title.
Okay.
Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready. And
this
ready.
plays in perfectly with what actually happens in episode 1.
Okay.
It's like herpes all over your face.
Well, wait, that's Discovery?
Discovery, because she's got like the radioactive nonsense happening.
So I would
She's
rather
got the
watch
herpes face.
I would rather watch Star Trek Discovery than have herpes on my face. But I don't know.
I would rather watch Star Trek Discovery than have herpes on my face too. But Star Trek Discovery does feel a lot like having herpes all over your face.
Wednesday Night Gentlemen, episode 33, brought to you by Japanese Akashi whiskey.
We are solidly over 2 hours at this point.
It is. So here's where I am. Star Trek Discovery is better than
I still
Star
have
Trek
things to do.
The Orville. Star Trek Discovery.
Are you ready?
A superior show to Star Trek The Orville.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go.
Yes.
The budget for an average Star Trek Discovery episode is what?
I have no idea. $1 million? $2 million?
$1 million?
Yeah.
Did you say $1 million?
$1 million per episode. Yeah.
It is $8 million.
$8 million an episode. Okay.
That's fucking expensive.
Yeah, that is expensive.
That is, in fact, 8 times more expensive than Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, inflation. And and I don't know if you noticed this, but Michelle Yeoh was in her 50s,
double-digit inflation.
So,
Yes. I mean, I get it.
There's a premium
you
on
gotta
that.
pay Michelle Yeoh for all that good
She's
work.
in her 50s.
But I mean, just think of it. How many CBS All Access subscriptions do you think that it's going to take just to get to that?
I agree. So is this show, I don't give a fuck, but is this show worth like a $6 or a $10 a month subscription to CBS All Access? Absolutely not, in my opinion. Absolutely, clearly, fucking not. In this, yeah, I have to think about that at all. CBS All Access is a shit show of a service, and Star Trek Discovery did not remotely make up for its for its failings as a streaming service. So no, I don't. I'm not gonna pay for it. That's for fucking sure. Whether I had access to episodes that were forthcoming or not, I'm absolutely not remotely convinced to pay for this service.
Well, my point is actually, I read an article earlier this week that basically said, actually I read 2 articles. One was that CBS All Access is a ploy to try to get CBS a better negotiating position at the table when it comes to how much they're compensated from like local distributors for their content.
Okay.
The other was basically saying it actually doesn't matter how well Star Trek Discovery does because the money isn't there to make a season 2.
I wouldn't think so. But then at the same time, I heard that actually Netflix had paid all of, or maybe most of, the production value itself just to be able to stream it internationally. So outside of the US.
That is exactly what they were talking about. They said basically Netflix feels like they got taken for this and that they don't think that they're going to do a season 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Or they're not going to pony up for season 2.
Yeah.
And otherwise, who's going to put up $200 million?
I agree. Yeah.
To make this.
Yeah. I agree. It's a weird, but that goes to I mean, again, this is separate from the content and the writing of the show itself. It just goes to trying to figure out what the motivations were behind this show in the first place, and whether those were detrimental to the franchise as a whole, which I think certainly they were. But I keep thinking that, like, the decision making was, well, we kind of want to split the difference between J.J. Abrams' Star Trek and already established timeline Star Trek. That's kind of where I feel like the intentions landed behind.
I think there was I would think there was a third coordinate on that, and that was that they wanted to also make it their own, which was, so you have just enough, and most of this is just that the saucer section is round and it's called Star Trek, that we can call it Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then we have, people seem to like J.J. Abrams, which means that they like lens flares and
lasers,
and battles and running.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, well, we don't just want to do those two things. Why don't we fuck up the Klingons too?
Yeah, well, yeah, because that's tradition now. But yeah. Yeah.
But
it's weird that it's just Klingons.
It's
weird that it's just the Klingons that, like, I don't know why.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there might be Romulans, and they may be giant floating squids at this point.
Maybe,
but
yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it wouldn't be any less of a terrible decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, I mean, we were talking in terms of flaming dumpster fires. The first two episodes of this show are like full on flaming dumpster fires.
See, I would totally disagree with that. Like, a flaming dumpster fire would be, here's two episodes that are atrociously acted and completely irrational as far as the plot and the writing are concerned. I would totally disagree with that. This Star Trek Discovery was not nearly as bad as the sort of trollish internet interpretation of this show was, as far as we were led to believe. And I think the reviews reflect that. I think if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, all of that stuff, both the audience reaction and the critic reaction, all reflect that this show was not nearly fucking as bad as it was predicted to be. Is it great Star Trek?
I don't know.
No.
Those Rotten Tomato reviews are pretty hit and miss.
But that's crap, though. Like, that's a bunch of fucking internet people who have registered with Rotten Tomatoes who've decided to, like, that's a bunch of bullshit.
I'm saying this straight up, like, what was the fucking movie that got like a 93% and we went and saw it and it was no good? Oh, it was The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, it's crap. Yeah,
it was certified fresh.
Yes. Are there issues among that? Yes. Does that necessarily mean, though, like, if it's got a generally positive review, that it's bullshit
saying
and
you
irrelevant?
Probably do well to.
Can you find examples
your...
of where the Rotten Tomatoes rating is contradictory to your own interpretation? Of course you fucking can. Of course you can. But the lion's share, we are not Tactic Angel. I understand that maybe this might be a blow to both of our egos.
We are
not the supreme beings with respect to Star Trek. We are not,
and other things.
We are not the ultimate judges.
Arguably, all other things.
We did have that rule, didn't we?
I think there was a rule.
Yeah, if we both agreed. Yeah, if we both agreed,
then it was true.
Yeah, we did have that rule. Though you are much harsher.
So I guess in this situation, we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
who knows?
There's a conflict. There's definitely a conflict. Is it great? No, we both agree on that. But is it a fucking dumpster fire? Yes, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Fire.
Yes, I'm going to disagree with you.
In this case,
totally
Midget Radio is wrong.
No, Tactic Angel
dumpster
is
fire.
Predictably harsh.
We are talking about
Star Trek
napalm.
Given
loaded into some sort of
to this show,
waste management,
his
mega
terrible
container
illustrations
filled with
of
diapers,
STD,
used
he made
diapers,
up his mind a long
and then
time
set
ago,
on fire.
And if he contradicts himself, it would be
I had low expectations, and I went into this,
so he
and
won't
it was
be
like,
able to really be honest.
Imagine if Kim Kardashian wrote a Star Trek episode, and that's where I was at. And
Are
it
we in
somehow
hour
managed
2
to be
yet?
worse.
Let me see.
We are way beyond time.
Oh my God, we are at 2 hours. I see 2 hours and 50 minutes approaching.
There was a break. I told you that this was going to be a long episode. That's
This might
why
be
we
my
aren't
favorite
talking
episode.
about
Tactic
flaming
Angel,
dumpster fire.
I love you. You're wrong as hell, but I do love you. And we're almost at 3 hours.
And that's exactly what the Orville episode 3 teaches
is
you.
a
That at
crap
the end
fest.
of a vicious
The end
debate,
is-
you can
the Orville
still
is
love your
right.
enemy.
Not only the Orville is right, but Western civilization is completely right in all of its fucking decisions with respect to ethical issues.
Yeah, that's why Justice is a good episode.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I mean, who gives a shit about
Yeah.
other cultures, right? It's about like human beings, predominantly white
to be
human beings, ethical approaches to other civilizations that they don't know shit about. That's the right way to be. Colonialism, really.
Mhm.
Colonialism is the way to go. Colonialism is the
I
way
don't
to
know
go.
about colonialism,
That's
but
the way the federal.
certainly,
I mean, that's
like,
the way the union. I guess the union is the way to be. Hey,
what
look,
we're trying to say is
long
that we
live
don't
communism.
support throwing gays
That's what I'm
off of
saying.
buildings.
Communism is the fucking way to go. And yeah, I think right, Russians, they have a real fucking problem with
I don't know about
with
that.
homosexuals.
I
So
don't know
we
about
know that
that.
they're right at the end of the day.
Are we done?
Vladimir Putin, 2020, I guess.
2020.
Vladimir Putin.
Vote Putin. There you go.
I think that's the message
An
of the
endorsement
Orville.
from Midget Radio.
Tactic
Well,
Angel,
ladies and gentlemen,
who
we're
abandons
gonna
his
call it quits
liberalism,
there because no,
in
we're
service
done.
of the Orville.
Hey, I'm trying to draw us out of this.
Okay. Okay. I'm done.
That has been episode number 33 of the Wednesday Night Gentlemen Multimedia Empire official podcast. Please give us a like. There's no fucking way anyone's listening to this. If you've enjoyed this video or subscribed to our channel or both, possibly, you can also find us on Twitter at WNG_MME_OPC and head on over to Facebook where we are just the Wednesday Night Gentlemen. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you again on episode number 34, where I believe we'll be talking about The Gifted and the Inhumans.
Yeah.
Comic book shit.
Yes. Comic book shit. Awesome.
Yeah.